my first impressions video, which covered only the first 4 episodes of Chainsaw Man, I expressed concern in the pacing because I was unsure whether this first season of 12 episodes would hold an entire character arc for our protagonist, Denji, or whether there would even be any sense of conclusiveness as a self-contained part of the overall journey of Chainsaw Man. Many of my friends and viewers were assuring me that it would come around based off their knowledge of the manga, which I have not read, but now I've come back to personally report on the entire first season. After having seen the finale, this is definitely a half season of television. It succeeds as a technical showcase, tonal demonstration, and proof of concept for the show's future, but it has yet to go beyond teasing the potential of the story, leaving the first section of Chainsaw Man feeling avoidably unfulfilling. My favorite part of the first 4 episodes were the thematic setups built into Denji's character, his yearning for freedom but inability to escape imprisonment. Just after escaping his first masters, he immediately enslaves himself to a new organization of demon hunters who put him on a figurative leash, building a very compelling abstract metaphor since he is literally half dog. The remaining 8 episodes build on the heart of Denji in interesting ways which continue to be my favorite part of the show. Beyond the themes of leashing himself to others, by the end of the season we built up Denji's pathetic dreams in a world of high-class dreamers and his drive to sacrifice anything necessary to achieve them. And we've set up his heartlessness, literally and figuratively, seeing as his heart was replaced by Pachita, his chainsaw dog, and how this heartlessness makes him worry that he is a bad and unempathetic person. We explore each of these avenues of Denji, but nothing changes in him, and he achieves no true journey in the first season after joining the organization in the first few episodes. There is a character who holds the spotlight during the finale, however, just not our protagonist. Hayakawa is one of the primary support characters in the show, and the finale centers around him moving on from Himeno's death. If we were to assume for a moment that this first season of Chainsaw Man had either 24 or 26 episodes similar to his modern competition like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, then here in episode 12, at the halfway marker, this would be the perfect place to build up the supporting cast so you are invested in them for the finale. I do not have a problem with the moment-to-moment pacing of the show so far within the greater context of the story they are building, because I think this is the proper timing for the turning point in Hayakawa's arc to unfold. But it does become a problem when it serves as the finale for the first season rather than one of the prominent mid-beats. Just as we're coming to question the motivations of key characters, as we're honing in on the main conflict of the story, being the gun devil, the show comes to a close. This is not where you should be ending the first chapter in an overarching story. This is the midpoint in the first chapter where things are ramping up. I don't want to come off like I hate the show though, because honestly I was much more sold on the show after episode 6 than I was in the beginning. Episode 8 in particular has far better direction than any of the others, which is really strange to me considering all 12 episodes are helmed by the same individual. This seems to be a common consensus though, based upon the IMDb user ratings. When I say better direction, I'm not just talking about the introduction of Katana Man or the actual events that occur in the episode either, even though it is undeniably one of the most exciting. But I'm talking about the presentation of the conversations, how the camera moves while they are in the balcony present the shifts in the conversation emotionally. I'm talking about the consistent use of misdirection to keep you on the edge of your seat, etc. It was just much more professionally presented than the other episodes. That's a big reason that I got more invested in the latter half. The other reason I got more invested is because many characters bit the bullet in this episode, and trimming down the cast to only its most essential I think was a great move that the show sorely needed. There was a major battle for screen time before, but I was able to get into the core characters more when they were honed in on. For the anime community in particular, the animation itself can be more important than the story to them, and for me, the show definitely does not disappoint. There's a great pacing between the drama and the action, allowing the action scenes to have more impact when they strike. I've heard some people complain about the CGI, but it worked for me and I loved how most of the fight scenes were choreographed and storyboarded. Thankfully there aren't any still frames like in some other animes. The music and the animation alone certainly hold the show up as bottom line serviceable for me because they are above average and worth experiencing. In my last video, I pointed out my annoyance over the obligatory exposition dumps because the character building relies on every character having a dream which their entire personality and worldview is based off of. These dumps definitely calmed down after the first few episodes, thankfully, but I do think that the show has a problem with how it handles exposition overall. The most egregious example of ill-timed exposition in the entire show, in my opinion, comes in the very last episode actually, when we get a flashback revealing the history between Himeno and Hayakawa, involving a cigarette that binds them together emotionally. The turning point I was talking about for Hayakawa that takes place in episode 12 is all about him receiving this cigarette from Himeno after her passing, because it holds much personal significance to him. However, no mention of this cigarette ever graced the audience until right before the moment that he gets it, so it's a very forced emotional beat that feels manipulative and unearned by every metric. If it were set up earlier in the show, then that would be a payoff that we could feel remorse off of, rather than having the screenwriters insist we be sad when they never earned that. The only other criticism I really have with the show at this point is how some of the demon powers are handled. I'm not a fan of action concepts based off near infinite possibilities. Let me give you an example. Let's think about Doctor Strange in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can't get invested into the action of those movies because any of these wizards can pull a spell out of the hat at any moment. So there's no expectations of what they have to work with, and there are no ground rules for the fights, so you've never truly convinced me that anyone is in danger. To a much lesser degree, Chainsaw Man suffers from the same problem for me because a new demon power will show up out of nowhere to save the day, like in episode 11 with the zombies. Or Chainsaw Man will randomly grow chainsaws out of his legs in the finale when that was never how it worked in the first place. There are definitely some cheap moments with the action in the last couple of episodes. Because each character has only one ability and this was established pretty early on, this is a much softened problem, but I do find it annoying me at certain points and I wish the rules and consequences would be more grounded. As an example of something that annoyed me, I got very excited when Denji was cut in half by the Katana Man because I love severe character journeys like that in RoboCop where he becomes a completely new individual thanks to their injuries. But then I remembered that Denji can just heal back up with some blood, so it didn't really matter. It's kind of hard to get invested in an invincible character. Again though, while still a complaint for me, it's handled far better than a lot of examples, so I find myself getting invested in the action still. I desperately wish they had waited to release this show until they had a full 24 episodes. I do think it's on a great track for success in the long run because of the promise of its setups, but at this point, Chainsaw Man has failed to live up to the high art, life-changing namesake that the uncontrollable hype around it has alluded to. There are undeniable hints that this will result in an excellent and potentially timeless series by the end of its run, but no fruits have started bearing from those seeds it has planted yet, and it's a very, very unfortunate place for a first season to end at. In my last episode, I promised that I would be talking about Hallmark movies to finish out my series on originality. I ended up bumping that episode a week just because I wanted to talk about Chainsaw Man first because I forgot that was coming out in the moment. But the next video will be that Hallmark video, and I've actually included comparing it to The Whale now that I've seen that. Might seem a weird comparison, but bear with me and you'll see what I have in store for you. That video will come out on Tuesday. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. If you enjoyed it or found it informative, like and subscribe for more screenwriting content. If you thought it could have been better though, give it a thumbs down and leave me some constructive criticisms in the comments below. Thanks guys, I'll see you later. And Happy New Year.